Joining me today is author Anna Barrington. Her new book is The Spectacle, which is loosely based on several real-life art Ponzi schemes over the past few decades. Anna Barrington allows the readers to peek behind the velvet curtain and step into this secretive yet fascinating sphere. Meet Ingrid, an aspiring artist and struggling gallery assistant eager to gain a foothold in the highly competitive art world. She soon crosses paths with the charming, mysterious Rudolph Sullivan, a powerful figure at the top of the gallery scene. Pulled into this web of lies, Ingrid finds herself at the center of Rudolph's complex attempt to maintain his sparkling image. Anna has worked in galleries, museums, and auction houses in the art world for 7 years. She received an MA from the Courtauld Institute of Art in London and a BA from the University of St. Andrews in Scotland. Welcome to the show. Anna, nice to have you on.
Thank you so much, Kathryn. It's great to be here.
Okay, the spectacle. I guess the first thing I have to say is the art world is kind of an enigma to most people. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why I wrote this book.
okay, that's why you wrote the book. Good. But this is a social thriller kind of book, right? Sort of like
Mhm.
uh, sh- giving us what the inside scoop on how the art world works and the schemes and the billions of dollars that go back and forth and sort of replicating the financial world that we know a little bit more about.
Yeah, I mean, I think of a social thriller, which is maybe my favorite type of book, as it's a thriller, but at the same time, there's an element of social satire, and there's also the element of, I think, what people fear most about, going about your everyday life with your colleagues, your friends, your spouse. There's someone in there who is not quite what they're making themselves out to be, and maybe powerfully destructive to your life. So that's how I think of the spectacle. And I've just always been fascinated by having worked in the art world. The finance world is so sort of, there's a lot of laws to do with transparency. There's a lot of regulations, and standards, a lot of them made in the wake of, certain 2008 crises. But the art world has none of that. It's very opaque. There's a lot of money laundering. And I wanted to talk about that. Sorry.
All right, so let's talk about that. Okay, a lot of money laundering, a lot of stuff going on, like I don't know, the talented Mr. Ripley, that kind of stuff that happens. As you say, it's opaque. We don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at certain very recent scandals, there's one with that art advisor, Lisa, um, what was her name? Lisa Schiff. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So she just got sentenced to a few years in jail. She had been doing something very similar to what the main character in The Spectacle does, which is advise people on works, say something costs this price, and actually you're pocketing a lot in the middle.
So what happens in terms of the effect on us, the those of us who are maybe not buying obviously very expensive art and we're not involved in the art world as you know, as the story, as the um, story, as in the spectacle. S Why do we need to know about this?
Yeah, well, I think I hope that people will find that the story is really relatable because it mostly revolves around the romantic relationship between the two main characters. Um, one of them being a failed artist who is experiencing her first sort of love, but it's also a very toxic relationship. So that is sort of the focus, and I think it's something everyone can relate to. But in terms of the art world, I think there's something fascinating about art, even if you can't afford it, I certainly can't. It's these sort of trends that in the contemporary art world, they're 5 years ahead, but they do come into our daily lives as well.
So I guess it's like from two angles, I would assume, right? It's, it's a
Yeah.
story, it's a love story, but then it's also about so I'm using the word sinister. I don't know if that's right or correct, but kind of a sinister context in which this romantic liaison happens, right? Or evolves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes sour. Yeah.
It's all about what? Money, ambition, corruption, which I guess we could all relate to today. And it also doesn't it takes place when? 2016?
Yeah, it's about ambition and corruption, and I think something that people will also really relate to is it's a story of how people can be corrupted by success and power, and you fall in love with someone, and you know, with that success and the power and the money, that comes along with them being as ruthless, and maybe those are the qualities that even attracted them to you in the beginning. Um, it becomes darker and often that can have, you know, bad consequences for the romantic relationship.
How can we relate that to what's happening today, let's say in politics?
I mean, I was thinking about the political situation constantly when I was writing this book, particularly in the figure of Rudolph, the main character, who's this charming and very shady art dealer who is running a Ponzi scheme. I mean, there are obvious parallels all over the cultural landscape right now. And I wanted to think about like why do we find that kind of figure so fascinating?
Well, yeah, you asked the question, why do we find that figure so fascinating? Why do we find people like that or leaders like that so fascinating? Why are we drawn to them?
Yeah, I think it has something to do with, the American dream and there's this idea that you can work your way up from nothing, you can invent yourself from nothing. Um, and there's sort of almost a congratulatory approach to creating that myth out of nothing, and it may be entirely fictional. That's all over our movies, our books, going back hundreds of years. So I think it's really ingrained in the way we see ourselves.
So how did you get involved or interested, let's say, in this topic and writing this book? What led you to, um, I guess, writing the book and exploring these kinds of issues?
Absolutely. I mean, it felt like just a really intense time. 2017 kind of onwards, there was sort of chaos in the White House and has been for the past 10 years. And then at the same time, it was a really kind of very morally outspoken and flashy spending time in the art world. And all the artists that I saw were making very sort of provocative works that had a strong moral undertone. Um, and they were often really engaged with social activism movements that were happening, like Me Too or BLM. Artists were making work about that, which is interesting because that's sort of a new model. Often artists have just been, painting landscapes or whatever. It doesn't have to be political. But I thought it was really telling about our time, that suddenly, just as with social media platforms, posting a black square or whatever, everything had to be so on the surface.
So are you saying that artists haven't been political, but now they are or more engaged in political or
No, absolutely. I think artists,
have always been
have
political?
always been political, but I don't think they necessarily showed it, felt the need to show the politics through, yeah, their work necessarily.
It's interesting because this was quite a while ago. I went, I think, in Barcelona, and I was in one of the, I can't remember which museum exactly, but one of the museums had a picture. The kings would hire the artists to paint whatever they wanted them to paint, and they would paint them in a political way. For instance, there was some building there was a lot of controversy about this building, and the king didn't want to go. So, but the artist painted a picture of this new building and painted the king in the picture so that the general public thought that he went to the opening of this building, which he actually didn't approve of.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show like how much of art is sort of reflecting an image you want to project. I think the difference is like nowadays artists don't work for
The king.
yeah, monarchs anymore. They've more become celebrities themselves.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so it's sort of the other way around. They're projecting what they want to be perceived as.
So they're more independent.
Absolutely, yeah. And they're much more like, Hollywood actors or actresses once you get to the top, and that can be scary, I think, for artists.
Artists become more celebrities, as you're saying. We know
Absolutely.
yeah, they have a celebrity status like actors. That's true. Um,
And they can be very glamorous. I mean, you look at someone like Julian Staubel, he's such a brand. He only wears blue pajamas.
yeah.
Um,
I was just at David Hockney exhibit. I don't know if you've gone to that, which is in Paris right now.
I haven't. Is it good?
I think it's one of the best exhibits I've e- ever seen on a grand scale. I mean, I happen to like him anyway before this exhibit. Obviously, I think he's 90, but
Mhm.
it was, yeah, it was the whole museum was dedicated to his work over his lifetime. But anyway, I'm digressing. But
I saw a great Hockney exhibit in London last year. It was his drawings. He's an incredible draftsman.
at the National Gallery,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that on steroids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is it still on?
Yes, I think
Oh,
it is. And huge attendance. I mean, which is good. I mean, um, but very well organized. It's in a Frank Gehry,
okay.
yeah, building. So anyway, yeah.
My husband is French, so we do go to Paris. So I'll put
Oh,
this.
it, there's no excuse. You have to go.
Yeah.
Definitely have to go. Um, okay, so let's relate the book to. I want to kind of get back to also relating the spectacle, um, the art world, to what's happening today. I mean, in terms of um, our attitude towards, I guess I think you said it earlier, our response to like we love ambitious people, corruption, all of those kinds of things. Very appealing to us, whether it's in the art world or any place else. And
hmm
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I think the character of Rudolph, the main character, came very, very naturally to me. I almost felt like I was possessed by him, and I think it's because I was watching so much TV, and Trump was all over the TV. And so yeah, I felt like when we look back at this time, we are going to think about um yeah, this figure who sort of strode across the world stage with a pack of fictions and lies and somehow managed to rise to the top.
deception.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess after a while, we have certain lived experiences, which kind of, you know, re- so all the deceptions get revealed because the truth does come out.
Well, I don't know, Catherine. I mean, I was thinking so much about how Like just the very nature of truth feels so unreal now. And just like, twisted. And so that was part of what I wanted to think about as well with the idea of the Ponzi scheme. How the truth can just be warped.
Yeah. It, who was, what's his name, who did the big Ponzi scheme? He's dead now. Um,
Madoff. Yeah. Bernie Madoff?
yeah, Bernie Madoff, exactly. Wasn't he the king of Ponzi schemes?
Yeah, yeah. And I was thinking about that as well. Um, I mean, how the balls you have to
Yeah, that's right.
um yeah, to be stealing your friends and family's monies for years and years and years. Um, and somehow just compartmentalize both things. You know this is going to crash down on top of you at some point. And in another way, continuing to get on the yacht, get on the private plane, whatever. I mean, what kind of brain is that?
Yeah, what kind of emotions is that? Yes, I think that's a good question. I mean, I'm thinking of the characters in your book. I mean, what does the person who's doing that, what do they feel? How do they operate emotionally? How can they be doing this, like you say, to this, doing this to their colleagues, to their friends, to their family? What kind of conscience do they have?
Well, I think it goes back to the compartmentalizing. It's someone who is very steely and has come up by, persuading everyone that he is this thing and he has convinced himself. And everyone does that, to some extent, fake it till you make it. But this is a person who can really do that to the nth degree. And on one side of their mind, they do realize what is going on. But I think of Bernie Madoff, having that whole separate floor. What was it, like the 11th and a half floor, and nobody knew what was going on. Um, and he had just all these sort of boxes of files. Meanwhile, the lower floor was the legit trading floor with computers. I think people like that, they really do have their mind sectioned off like that.
So it's all about compartmentalizing. If they're able to do that. I mean, we all compartmentalize, as you say, to some extent, right? But this is uh goes way beyond that. Actually,
Absolutely. I
yeah.
mean, if you're a sane person, you start drowning under the weight of that, and you freak out and you have to tell people. So I think most people, our anxiety overwhelms us, and we can't go that far.
Yeah. Well, do you think there's any hope for the big question?
Our conscience, I mean, yeah.
I, y- we do have a yes, we do have a conscience. That is a hope for mitigating, I guess, this behavior as individually and also as a society. But it seems to me we're going in the wrong direction right now.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right. I feel like our tolerance for this kind of behavior and this kind of scam is maybe increasing, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, for instance, and how can senators and congresspeople representing um, people in their states and cities deny people food, health care, childcare, and yet we have leaders who have billions of dollars? How do you reconcile that? Who
I have I couldn't tell you. The world is cruel and unfair.
Yeah. Um, well, let's get back to the book. What happened? Oh, do we want to give away? We don't want to tell all. I want people to go out and get the book, right?
Yeah, well, I hope people will love it. I will say that I wanted sort of a crazy downward spiral to be baked into this book. So I love that in Gone Girl, or even Talented Mr. Ripley. And Rudolph's deals start spiraling and he can't get out. And Ingrid is very much wrapped into it. And so it all sort of ends in flames.
And what about you? I think I read just a little bit about your background, but you have an MA from the Institute of Art in London and a BA from St. Andrews in Scotland. So tell us about your experience as a student.
Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky to get to go to St. Andrews. What I love about the sort of British system of education is they were really old school, and I remember being trained on just they would flash pictures of Renaissance paintings over my eyes, and I would have to identify the artists, and this would happen, maybe 200 times, and that was their test. So it was just something I guess they hadn't really changed the curriculum in about 300 years. So it was old school, and I kind of liked that.
And okay, and you were with a lot of other students, obviously, I assume, but then once you graduate, what kind of a connection do you have with them once you graduate? What direction are they taking?
Oh, they went in all different directions. A lot of them went in the art world. Um, but it's tough to get jobs in the art world. It's sort of like any creative industry or like publishing. They're few and far between. So just as many people sort of had to re-educate and go to law school or whatever.
Law school seems to be the default profession when,
Yeah.
doesn't it? I don't know. People try to follow their passion and then that doesn't work out and you can't earn a living, so you become a lawyer.
Well, yeah.
Uh, uh,
Your mom
but
starts calling you, get serious.
right, exactly. Why don't you go to law school, honey? But but I was curious, because any of the students that you were with, have you seen them in positions of sort of getting into the similar positions as you describe people in the book or the art world, have reached those kinds of levels? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I met a lot of people in the art world who inspired people in this book. And it's fiction, of course, but I did know people who got wrapped up in legal scandals.
I mean, you don't have to name them. I don't. we we don't want to do that. But so after that, okay, so you graduate and then you didn't go to law school, you continued. Yeah. So tell us about that.
So yeah, I kept I was always sort of writing on the side. I went to the Courtauld, did an MA, just fell in love with London and sort of bopped between London and New York, all while sort of going to these parties and writing things down, writing the book.
Yeah. Oh, well, you make it sound simple, but just writing a book is not easy.
No,
So
it was
yeah.
tough.
Um, I mean, there has to be a decision. I'm going to sit down and write the book, or how did that happen?
Well, for a while I was sort of doing it to entertain myself. Um, I just thought some things were so funny and unbelievable in the art world. Things people would say just seem like very unself-aware, or, I thought it was amazing and I wanted people to know about it. So it was both of those things. And so I would just write things down. And after a while, it sort of grew to be this pile. And I was thinking, how can I structure this? And maybe someone else would like to read it too.
Well, you're very talented, obviously, an artist, a writer, all of those things. Um, so what's the response, or what has been the response to the book?
Oh, I hope people will like it.
Yeah.
I'm very, very hopeful. It's sort of mortifying to see your own words out in the world, but the first reviews have been very positive, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah, it's scary to put yourself out there.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So embarrassing if
Yeah.
you're kind of shy, which I am.
You have to hide in your house till
Yeah,
you get the reviews and see what happens, right? Um,
exactly.
uh, well, we have a couple minutes left, so you can't hide anymore. We want to know what platforms, what websites to go to so we can read more about about your work and about your book and about you.
Okay, my website is annabarrington.com. And my Instagram is Anna Barrington Campbell.
Okay, so those two places, that's where we can connect.
Great.
Great. I'm going to Anna Barrington, and then title of the book is The Spectacle. And Anna, thanks so much for being on the show today. It's
Thank you
good.
so much,
Yeah, good
Kathryn. It
conversation. Thank you.
was a pleasure. Have a great day.
You too. Joining me today is Diana Kokoska, author of Becoming More. You can't get to better until you get to different. If you find yourself wishing for more in life, wanting to become more, but not quite sure how to reach that next level of success, you're not alone. That feeling isn't a flaw, it's a signal, a quiet nudge that there's more in you waiting to be unlocked. Diana Kokoska, an award winning business leader, distills years of wisdom into one mission: helping people become the creator, crusader, and champion of their own lives. She teaches us to recognize and reshape limiting patterns, turning breakdowns into breakthroughs. She also offers her insight on how to leave a positive and life-changing legacy that adds value to others. She's a practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, and that is the acronym NLP, and a founding member of the John Maxwell team of certified coaches. Welcome to the show, Diana. Nice to have you on.
Thank you so much, Kathryn. It's great to be here.
All right, I'm going to start with, we all want to become more. I don't know that it seems to me we're becoming less, but I keep, I hope that's not true. But so we need you to tell us how to become more. And as I said, let's talk about the first thing I think which I mentioned in the intro, being the creator, the crusader, and the champion of your own story. How do you do that? It seems a lot of other stuff is always getting in the way, and we can't do that. We have a good intentions, but it doesn't seem to always work.
Well, isn't that we're always telling stories. Our subconscious mind actually loves stories. And we think about the story of our life. How do we explain our morning? Every single morning when we get up, we have a choice to repeat yesterday or to write a new story from yesterday, because yesterday's over and it may not have been that good. So as we go through our life, we have experiences, something happens to us. And the way our brain works is we start going through the filing cabinets that we've put all of our memories in, and we go, oh, this time is like that time. So we form a judgment. And once we form a judgment, we make up a story around that. Now, there's a portion of our brain, Kathryn, that's the reticular activating system, RAS for short. And it literally filters out things that we don't want to know and will only show us what we think is important. Therefore, the story we make up, it makes certain that we only get to see what we say is important.
Okay, so Diana, give us an example of that.
Okay, so we're out and about and someone cuts us off in traffic, right?
Yeah.
We go through our memory banks and we go, oh, I've been cut off before, and that guy's a jerk because he doesn't care about anybody but himself. And we start making up this story based upon our judgments. See, one person says he's a jerk and wants to get back at him, maybe even road rage. The other guy has a story that's made up of, gosh, maybe he's getting to the hospital. One of his kids just were taken in an ambulance or something, and he's got to get there quick. So based upon the story that we make up, Kathryn, then that predicts our future and how we'll act from there.
So those the two stories, and there's probably other stories or other narratives also could explain that behavior. But then then we what? We have to recognize one story isn't really working. We keep repeating the same story and reacting in the same way. And so, but we have to be aware that, okay, this behavior is really not working for me in a positive way, and then reshape the story.
Exactly, because it's just a story. And we make up stories for reasons. Sometimes we make up stories and tell people how we're lonely, how we don't feel good, we're depressed. Other people make up stories about being happy. And, it's all a big story that we're living. And so many times we give the pen to somebody else, so they're writing our story. And if they're writing our story, what kind of story are they going to write for us? Probably one that serves them. Whereas if we pick up the pen and we start designing our own life, in fact, in my book, Kathryn, I ask people, as creepy as it sounds, to write out their eulogy. And then once you write out, who is it that you desire to be known? What is it you didn't desire to be known for? And you start living that way and making that your story. Now you are the creator, the crusader, and you can become the champion of your own story. We're living too much in victimhood.
Well, I think that's a great idea about writing, because I almost did that. I was telling my boys, I think I do want to write my own eulogy, because I don't want you to make any mistakes in terms of uh, or say things I wouldn't want you to say. So, I mean, I think that's very compelling. You also have something, if you start doing that, is such a good idea, because you really do think about, what have I done? What do I want to be remembered by? And by writing it down, it does make it real, and it gives you kind of a goal, doesn't it? If you're taking a look and you don't like what you're doing, well, you call it reframing your goals.
Yes. In fact, I just want people to also know that it doesn't matter where you've been. You can't go back and change the beginning. You can start right now, today, and change the ending. So what story do you want to be remembered for? Maybe it's not the story of your life right now, yet you still have more life to go. And so it's a decision, it's a discipline, it's a way of thinking. And if we desire to become more, and to be known for more, maybe have more, give more, earn more, whatever it is, it starts with the way we think and making a decision today to go forward with what it is we desire to be.
So, as you say, reshape our limiting patterns, recognize them and reshape them, and see what's limiting us. First of all, you have to be aware, but then make those changes. What do you do when stuff really does get in the way, though, which it happens to all of us?
It all gets in the way, right?
Yeah, it all gets in the way. You lose your job, you get sick, you get divorced, all the stuff that happens to all of us.
Life is so full of ups and downs. It's like a roller coaster. And a lot of people complain about those ups and downs, Kathryn. Yet, let me ask you, would you buy a ticket to ride a flat roller coaster? I don't think anybody would. And so, in the story of our life, we are going to have ups and downs, and we're going to have to identify those challenges and literally start reframing them. For example, maybe you did lose your job and it hurt. And to recognize that hurt, maybe write down when things are bothering me. I like to write it down with a felt tip on a piece of toilet paper and then flush it down the toilet and say, thank you. I've learned from you. Now I've got to get on with my life. And we've got to affirm what it is that we desire, because nerve cells that fire together wire together, and nerve cells that no longer fire together no longer wire together, which means we can help retrain our brain to a new way of thinking. So we're hurt, we're upset, things aren't going our way. Affirmations do help. Writing out in the present tense, I am someone that overcomes challenges and ends up better than I started. I am someone that does this. And those words, I am, those are the two strongest words, I believe, in our English language, because what follows them is the story of our life. I am. What are we? Who are we? And who do we desire to be? We weren't born to be average, yet so many people settle. And they settle because it's a risk to be uncomfortable. It's vulnerable to say what we're going through. And it carries possibilities of failure. And people do not want to be a failure. They want to be known for something that is successful. And so I think we have to look at life full of possibilities and not let the fear get the best of us. So we lost a job and it hurts, and we've got to get over it. Find a friend you can talk to, go to a counselor, a therapist, whatever, to really be able to reframe and take new action to overcome those setbacks, and then be consistent with what you're telling yourself and the story you're making up.
I think sometimes one gets bogged down in, I lost my job. That's the only job in the world. I don't have any other choices, because the word choices, we do have choices. I mean, good ones and not so good ones, but we always have a choice. And
exactly.
Yeah. And to be able to feel that, I guess. I had a coach once, she said, and maybe all coaches say this, I don't know, but give energy to that which you want to grow. And I think about that all the time. If I'm bogged down in something, or things aren't working out as I wanted them to, I'll think, okay, why am I focusing on this? Why am I giving energy to something that I don't want to grow? And I mean, I think you're saying the same thing.
Yeah, what you focus on expands, right?
Yeah.
And I love what Viktor Frankl said: when we are no longer able to change the situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And we can slip back into that average. Here we are, we're the star, we're doing really well, and something happens to us. And it's so easy to fall back into average because average people, they do what's easy. Stars do what's necessary. Average people, they wait for the motivation to come, yet stars rely on the discipline. Average people, they seek comfort, whereas stars, they seek growth. And so I think a good question to always ask ourselves is, how can I grow from this? In my book, I have what's called the adaptive learning model. We learn something, we implement it. We fail at it most of the time when we first start, and then we learn a new way. We implement that, we can fail at it, and we keep going through this adaptive learning model, always growing, always taking the risk to be better than we were the day before.
We get bogged down in our comfortableness, right? And
Oh,
I think essentially when you live in a middle class society, it's easy to do that. You know, most of us, not all of us, you have a roof over your head, may not be the roof you want, but you have one, and you have water and food. Not everybody, but most people in our and so you get comfortable, and it gets really scary to as you're saying, to change that. I mean, I get it. I like to take risks. I'm assuming you do too. It gets my adrenaline going. I feel good about it. I mean, and not necessarily a calculated risk, I guess. I'm not somebody who's a big time risk taker, but it's exciting.
yeah, it really is. In this comfort zone, the way that we think, we've got to expand our thinking because our thinking has only gotten us so far. And so I like to say that we're prisoners of our thoughts. And it's like we're in this cage, and our thoughts are the bars on the cage. And inside the cage, we're in our comfort zone. And we don't want to go outside this cage because, after all, we feel safe. And we don't want to take that risk because outside the cage, there may be something, well, it's unknown. And they did this study with people that were in prison. They were in prison for 20 years, and they get out and they generally end up right back in prison. And they wondered why. And they started looking at that, Kathryn, and they found it was called 6-12-6. At 6 a.m., they receive breakfast. At 12, they eat lunch. At 6, they eat dinner. And it is so regulated, and it makes them feel safe and comfortable. And people thrive to get back into that comfort zone because, after all, it's unknown what's going to happen tomorrow. Yet our past, we know what's happened in our past. So we're very comfortable staying and rehashing and reliving like Groundhog Day, the same day over and over and over again, instead of stepping out into a new pathway, into a lifelong journey that we absolutely desire.
Predictability, I guess, is comforting.
Yes.
If we yes, and is what you're saying, that comfort level. I like that, prisoners of our thoughts, that you just mentioned. That we are prisoners of our thoughts, and we have to. But this is my question. If you are, let's say one is able to do this, read your book, be able to accomplish at least some of what you've written about, then what happens to the group that you're part of? Let's say, you have a job, you have a family, and they're not quite there yet, and you've made these changes. How does that impact the rest of the group?
It's very interesting because we do become like the people we hang out with.
Yes, our context.
And yes, and so with that, now we're becoming more, and we get to invite them to come along with us. We share what we're learning. And that's why a lot of the people that are reading my book, Kathryn, they're actually doing it as a family. Many of the high schools have adopted the book and have their kids going through it. One of the colleges, a university here in Austin, Austin Christian University, has me speak many times a year in regards to this book and what it holds, because our mind is so powerful. And we don't realize that we've trained it to think the way it thinks. And so we have to invite people to come along with us. We invite them by sharing what we're learning, sharing what we're reading about if they don't want to read, and having them discover what are their emotions, what are their values, what is their mindset, what are the words that they're using. And it's really interesting because I had this one lady I was coaching, and she was always depressed. I'm depressed about this, I'm depressed about that, I don't like the way this is going. And finally I said, could we change that word depressed to working through? So I'm working through this. I've got to tell you, within 2 months, her business started turning as she was working through things instead of saying that she was depressed. Another lady, she was always using that word but. Now, it's good if you want to negate what you just said or make a comparison. Yet she was using it when she would compliment people and say, like, oh, your dress is beautiful, but, and then she would say something else. And so they never heard the compliment she was giving to her employees. Oh, that's fabulous, but we could do this a little different. So not hearing the compliment, all they heard was her complaining constantly, and people were leaving her organization. So we started listening to the words she used. She used like, oh, you should have done this, or you should have done that. Well, that doesn't go over real well. So changing the word but to and, hey, you did a great job. And what if we just tweak this one part? Sounds so much better. Or instead of you should have done this, saying, hey, next time, could we do it this way? So the words we use make up the story, and it literally tells us how people are thinking based upon the words they're using, and how we can then help them become better and become more.
That is critical. And getting back to what you first said, language and communication is so important. As you're saying, you're helping this one example you gave of a woman reframing the way she says things. And you're talking about you working with, you're in Austin with families or children in school. Do they,
Yes.
they never, most schools, correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't teach the importance of communication, of what language is, and I at least I haven't seen that. They take English in school or whatever, but they don't really talk, or they don't really have courses or classes in communication until you get to college. You can get a degree, but that's a little
It's
late.
interesting.
Yeah.
They don't teach life skills.
No, they don't.
That's the part that they don't teach about money. They don't teach about energy. They don't teach about just basic life skills and even energy. I mean, when we think, you mentioned it earlier, our energy, we're broadcasting energy all the time. In fact, every one of us, Kathryn, have an energetic calling card. And that energy hits somebody long before you could ever get their phone number or hand them a business card or even open your mouth. And there's 4 energies that I have found that actually fuel our journey and make it easier. It's the energy of intention and purpose. And when we are in our purpose and in that zone, oh my goodness, our energy is so laser focused. The energy of confidence. And I know confidence is different than self-worth. That's a whole different talk. Yet to have that energy, and we get the confidence by doing things over and over and over again and making each day our masterpiece, like Coach John Wooden said, and emphasized for all of us to do. The energy of gratitude is something that everyone can do. And I got to tell you, before my feet hit the floor, I give 5 things I am grateful for every single morning, because there's this saying, and I don't know who said it, was, what if tomorrow you woke up with what you showed gratitude for today? What would you really have? And I also found that your brain cannot be in negativity and in gratitude at the same time. So back to your question about when we're down and we're challenged, when we go to energy of gratitude, oh my goodness, it makes those challenges much less. And start writing down, keep a gratitude journal of everything that you're grateful for. And then the last energy is the energy of the present moment, to actually be where you are. Too many people are with their family thinking about work, and at work thinking about their family. Just wherever you are, be there and be present, and you will have an energy that abounds.
That is just happened to me recently in my own family. I'm pretty good at doing that. And then one of my guys was saying to me, well, what about this and tomorrow? And I said, you know what? I don't want to, I'm enjoying the moment right now. I will deal with it, whatever it was. It was something we had to deal with, just stuff with the house. And just being able to say that, I'm sticking to the moment here, and I'm not going to get engaged on what I need to do tomorrow and the next day. And I'm not talking about being irresponsible. It's really doing what I think you're talking about with your advice.
Yeah, no, you have a great energy, and you just recognizing that, hey, I'm just going to enjoy the moment where I'm at right now. Good for you, because a lot of people would start the discussion and going elsewhere, right? And so we have limiting energy and we have liberating energy. I mean, limiting is like fearful and worried and nervous and depressed, and we're dissatisfied, we're anxious, we're stressed, we complain a lot.
Sounds terrible.
No, or we can have that liberating energy of choosing to be joyful, because joy is a choice. You don't wake up one morning and go, woo, everything's going my way. If you do, you're probably not on this planet, for heaven's sake. But we choose gratitude, we choose confidence, we choose to be passionate about what we're doing. And we give ourselves approval. So many people out there want the approval of other people. And we're always comparing ourselves to others, and we're comparing our insides to their outsides. We don't know what they're going through on the inside. They may be thinking exactly as we're thinking. We're just not making good comparisons. So we have to be intentional, take responsibility, look for the bright side. And I think resilience and persistence is something that's needed more in today's world than ever.
Resilience and persistence. How do we do that? Let's talk about, we don't have that much time left. So let's talk about resilience. Well, you're in Austin, you're in Texas. Look what's happening. How does the resilience and persistence fit into the context of what's happening right now with flooding, with all the stuff that's happening? Yeah.
Yeah, there's many things happening, and it is very, very sad to see. There's plenty of people still missing, and there's people that have lost loved ones, people that are close. A lady here in our office building, I was talking with her yesterday, friends, family. Those are things that it's a grieving period, and you've got to go through the grief. Otherwise, if you just say, oh, I can handle this, no, we can't. Yeah. We've got to go through that. And I think that resilience is just, I know when my son lost his wife to cancer, he would call me and go, what do I do? And I go, you breathe in and out. And if that's all you can do today, God bless you.
Yeah.
But strength is being wise enough to ask for help. And strong people build strong relationships. So reach out to those people that you can trust, that you can talk to, and that will give of their time generously. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Maybe it's that you need someone to fix dinner for you. A lot of these people lost their home. We all have to have mentors and encouragers and truth tellers in our life, right? Yeah. And I think during the tough times, it's the relationships. And right now, Kathryn, they're saying that loneliness is almost an epidemic right now, that they did a survey and 66% of Americans feel lonely. Only 12% will admit it. That's 2 out of 3 people almost are feeling lonely, or more than that. I'm just going, 2 out of 3 will actually talk about it.
Yeah.
I think we need to build stronger relationships, not with our iPhones, not with our iPads, not with our computer, with each other.
We
And
need
get-
connections, not isolation. It's connecting.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm finding right now. How will these people get through it? Connection,
Yeah.
relationships, reaching out and clinging to one another, because that's what we've got right now.
Well, we have a couple minutes left. It's been great talking to you. Diana Kokoska, Becoming More. You can't get to better until you get to different. And we've had a great conversation, but there's so much more in the book. So, Diana, give us website platforms to go to for more information about the book and about you.
Well, we certainly appreciate that. Of course, you can get the book on Amazon. That's a great one. And I'm on Facebook at Diana Kokoska and Instagram, Diana.Kokoska. LinkedIn at Diana K. That's the best one. That's the easiest one. And TikTok at Diana.Kokoska.
Great. Good.
Also, the YouTube channel of Diana Coco. See, they just take my name, Kathryn, and make it all different ways.
That's good. Very flexible. That's great. The idea is we want to connect, not isolate. So a lot of choices, but thanks so much for being on the show today. Great talking to you.
Kathryn, thanks for talking with me.